Welcome to a realm where personal growth meets expansive spirituality and where we're not just scratching the surface. We're diving deep, widening our perspectives, and having a darn good time doing it. This is the Enlighten Podcast, and I am your host, Jen Hamilton. You'll enjoy an infusion of motivation, empowerment, and inspiration that will resonate in every aspect of your life. Expect captivating stories, heartfelt musings, and my own personal experiences. But that's not all. I'm bringing awe-inspiring individuals to the table, so get ready to meet some remarkable souls whose wisdom and stories will leave you spellbound. No topic is off limits here. Brace yourself for raw authenticity, unfiltered vulnerability, and yes, the occasional splash of explicit language. We're delving into the realms of the esoteric, mystical, and the woo-woo, unafraid to explore the extraordinary. So if you are ready to venture beyond the surface, to explore the depths of your soul, and to awaken the magic of life, if your heart says yes, then hit that play button and let the Enlighten Podcast guide you on this remarkable expedition. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Enlighten Podcast. I am your host, Jen, and today's very special guest is Crunch Ranjani. Crunch is on a mission to support folks, particularly women, who are going through a big life transition, such as a breakup, divorce, career change, or kids flying the nest, to connect with their deep inner self and uncover hidden desires through the vessel of transformational travel. Having lived a nomadic lifestyle for the past 10 years and traveled to over 50 countries, Crunch has experienced and still experiencing the power of travel in creating transformation in her life. And she wants to be able to share her magic of travel with others. Through her highly customized GPS, the guidance and personalized support programs, Crunch enables and empowers people to take the next steps in embarking on the most important journey of all, back to self. This was a very inspiring conversation to have with Crunch, full of so much wisdom and golden nuggets about travel. And I know that you're absolutely going to love it. So without further ado, let's dive in. Welcome, Crunch. It is so fantastic to have you here. Welcome to the Enlighten Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited.
Crunch, where in the world are you?
I am currently calling in from Singapore.
Oh, that's exciting. How's the weather in Singapore at the moment?
It is boiling hot. I mean, it is. I'm wearing shorts. You can't see this, but I'm wearing shorts, and it's very, very hot. It's been like we're going through a spell of haze because of the burning that's happening in Indonesia, I believe. Like they're clearing their farmlands and stuff, and they do this every year. And when the winds are not in our favor, a lot of that smoke ends up in Singapore. So we have like a haze warning, like in terms of like air quality and things like that. So I will be wearing my mask when I go outside today.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I don't blame you. I didn't realize it got that far. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's a problem. But
Yeah. Now, Crunch, you do some incredible things in the world. You're a transformational travel and experience companion. Tell us all about that. What is it that you do and what is the magic that you bring to the world?
Thank you for asking. So I describe myself as a transformational travel coach or experience guide. And basically what I help people do, or basically like what I support people in doing, is I usually work with women mostly because that's my lived experience. And I support women going through times of transition in their life, things like big life changes, divorce, separation, breakups, career changes, or maybe they're new empty nesters when their kids have all grown up and flown the nest, and they're wondering kind of like, what do I do now? Like, who am I? Right? Like, because a lot of times, especially as women, like we tend to tie our identities to the roles that we fulfill for other people, and like what we're doing in our lives, right? Like, so I'm French, I'm an accountant, I am this person's wife, I'm this children's moms, and when you're no longer actively in that role, like whether you've gone through a divorce or like your kids have left the home and you're no longer an active parent, or you've been laid off, like like lots of people are getting laid off these days, right? So when you suddenly take away something that's been a integral part of your identity for a significant amount of time, usually what happens is that there's this vacuum or this space where you're just kind of like, well, I don't know who I am, like without this thing identifying me or defining me. And so I think that travel can be a very powerful tool for women to kind of go on that journey of connecting with themselves and uncovering like what it is they want to do, who they want to be, how they want to show up in the world. And, you know, when you change your environment, you kind of have that flexibility and that freedom to explore, to change to your perspectives and, you know, step outside your comfort zone and jump into whatever it is that you want to do and whatever whoever it is you want to be, right? And ultimately, for a lot of women, travel is terrifying, right? Like we're not encouraged as children or little girls to go and travel the world. Like, you know, like nobody tells us like, oh yeah, totally go travel the world. Like, you know, they're always like, oh, it's going to be really dangerous, or like it's boring if you go alone, or, you know, they're always full of like advice. I use that in air quotes. Um, which discourage us from traveling on our own. But I think, like for me personally, I've been traveling for the last 10 years, almost more or less full time. And it has been some of the most magical experiences of my life, right? And I would love to be able to offer that to more women so that they can also, you know, step into their power and like become more confident, become more self-trusting, develop that intuition, and, you know, just generally like gain that sense of self and confidence and all of that good stuff that comes with traveling on your own. So that's a little bit about what I do.
That is incredible. And you're so right, because travel just opens up so much for you. Like being exposed to different cultures, being exposed to different languages, being exposed to different food and lifestyle. Like when not that I've done much extensive travel at all, but I went over to London and France a few months ago. And I think I was really glad that I started off in London because it's an English speaking country. So I was sort of finding my feet after such a long flight. Okay, I'm in a different country, but at least I can communicate. And then when I went to France, it was a very different experience because it's a different language. And even though obviously like they have the same symbols of the alphabet and I could make things out, and there's obviously, you know, Google Translate and all of that, it's a new version of yourself that you've got to meet. You've got to have, you know, patience with yourself. You've got to be inspired to try different food. I love it so much. And I feel like you, and this is what I think what they call the travel bug, right? Like you go one place and you're like, oh my God, I just want to keep traveling everywhere all of the time. How can I, you know, make this my lifestyle? How can I make lots and lots of money to be able to travel all the time? What are some of your experiences, Crunch, with, you know, getting the travel bug and now experiencing travel and then going, I need to help other women see the value of this?
Hmm. So I come from Singapore. I mean, I was born and raised here, and for those of you who don't know, Singapore is a really, really small country. Like you can't even run a full marathon across the length of it. Like that's how tiny it is, you know. So for me, travel has been a part of my life since I was very little. Like my parents have had the like I've had the privilege of traveling with my parents and with my family. They've brought us to different places in Southeast Asia. Like we even visited Australia once. And so for me, like travel wasn't this big scary thing. Like it was something that was quite natural, right? And coming from a really small country, like I always had the sense that the world is so much bigger than what is within Singapore. And like the perspectives or the kind of like idyllic lifestyle that we have in Singapore, like it's well known as a very safe place. Like the education system is really great, blah blah. But also kept getting the sense that like this is a very very small aspect of the world, right? Like the world is so much bigger. There's so many more perspectives out there, so many different ways of living life, and so many more incredible people that I get to meet. Like, so for me, travel has always been something that I wanted to do. And so once I graduated from university, I saved money. I was working in a job just to save money and so that I could travel, right? So I started doing that. Like I just bought like a one-way ticket to South America and decided to see where that would take me. And like I really got into the idea of solo travel because when I was in university, I did an exchange program in Portugal, in Lisbon. And after my semester ended, I took 6 weeks to backpack around Europe, and being able to do that and, you know, see and meet so many new people and places. That's when like the travel bug really bit, and I was like, oh my God. this is what I want to be doing, and at that time I didn't know like if it was, like a passing phase, like for a lot of people, like they do the 1 year of the gap year kind of backpacking travels, or like the work and travel exchange kind of thing. And then eventually they're like, oh yeah, I kind of just want to go back and like do my regular life. And that's fine. But I feel that like once you've traveled like that, you know that there are different possibilities. You know that there are different options available for you, right? As compared to somebody who's never traveled in that way before, right? So I started traveling, and somehow just like the money ran out at some point, my savings ran out, and then I was just like, I don't want to go home yet. I don't want to stop traveling. Let me figure out a way to make this, like keep this going, right? So I taught English in Costa Rica for a while. I've taught English in multiple places after that, and just kind of set up an online business doing copywriting work and transitioned into that. And now I most recent venture is this transformational travel coaching and experience guide thing that I'm doing, because I finally realized like what the last 10 years of travel have been preparing me for, that I didn't realize at the time, right? Like at that time I just felt the call to travel, and now I'm finally seeing like, oh, all of those places that I visited, the countries that I've traveled to, all the experiences that I've had in these last 10 years has been preparing me to kind of go out and support other people in making travel a bigger part of their life, right? A more intentional part of their life, and using travel in an intentional way and not just taking a vacation. While a vacation is great, and we do need time to like relax and unwind and just not think about anything for a while, I think travel is much more than just that, right? Like it has so much more potential, but only if you know what you're doing, and like you go into it with like an intentionality about what do I want to get out of this trip, and it's not just a fancy vacation.
Oh, I love it so much. And one thing that you mentioned, Crunch, about, being in Singapore, because Singapore's like a hub. There's a lot of flights that come in from different countries into Singapore and then straight back out again. Here in little old Australia, if we want to go anywhere, we have to travel for like, I think Bali is about 8 hours from where I am. But if I want to go to Europe, that's a 24-hour journey to get there. So we don't do little trips, overseas, other than to like New Zealand. We do sort of big trips, and that requires a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of energy to put in. So I was always encouraged to travel in my 20s, and I didn't. And I kick myself continually for it. I have, a very sort of like conscious regret about that, before I had children, because it opens you up. And like we were saying before about, experiencing different languages and cultures, I feel like it's such an activation and an initiation into adulthood to be able to travel. And I didn't take that opportunity. I was working full time, and I had a little dog, and I was like, well, I can't leave him behind because I was living on my own. And then when the world started closing down a few years ago, I was like, shit, have I missed my opportunity to travel the world? And so it's such a big thing. And because my kids are, what are they, 9 and 7? So I'm thinking to myself, all right, when maybe in like 10 years time, when they're a bit older, that's when I'll start to get like a proper alone traveling. I want to travel with them before that, as they're growing up, so they get to experience it. But there's so many places I want to go and visit on my own and have sort of long stints overseas. And because it's such a long distance away for us in Australia, we really have to make the most of it. What would you say to someone who is in my position, or say directly to me, Crunch, who says, oh, okay, so I'm in my mid to late 30s. I've got kids, but I won't travel for a little while. What's your perspective as a professional in this space? What would you say to me about that? Have I got it all wrong?
I would say, I mean, you have kids, right? Like, and what is kind of what are the things that you want them to know, right? Like about living their adult life, right? Are you putting your life on hold so that you can be a mom? And like, if that's the choice that you're making, then let it be a conscious choice and not a regret that you put on them, to tell them that like when they've grown up, or even now, like, oh, I'm not doing my solo trips because I gotta take care of you kids, right? Like, what kind of example are you setting for them, right? Like, and teaching them that they've always got to put their desires on hold for somebody else. Like, is that the message we want to be sending our kids. I don't know about you,
Oh,
but
I love that you call me out on that. I love it. It's funny because like I'm separated from their dad, so logistically, and like he was fine to have them for the 3 weeks that I was overseas earlier in the year, but they really miss me. They didn't have the concept of what 3 weeks actually meant without mom, and I think they still hold it against me that I left for so long. So I 100% agree. Like I am putting my life or my travel on hold for their sake. And I'm hoping, in even the next couple of years as they get a bit older, I can start doing more trips. But thank you for calling me out on that. I love you for that.
I mean, I think that's a problem that we women always face, right? Like I grew up like my mom has always been telling me, I mean, my mom's from a different generation, obviously, but she would always tell me like, "Oh, I quit my job to raise you guys, like this was my responsibility, blah blah." But I always felt like that was a burden that she placed on me, even though it was her choice, right? Like, and of course, like there was a different mindset, a different upbringing, and all kinds of cultural things were different at that time. But I don't want to be part of a new generation of mothers or aunts or people in this generation who put the same burden on our kids to tell them like, "Oh, I gave up my entire life so that I could raise my kids," right? Like I want like any children in my life that I'm a part of, and I'm a pretty involved aunt to my two nieces who are also 7 and 9, and I want them like they're little girls, and I want them to grow up thinking that they can do whatever they want and they don't have to put their lives on hold for somebody else, right? Like whether that's a man or a child or somebody that is dictating how they should live their lives. Like I ideally want to be an example for them to say that like, hey, if she can do it, I can do it too. And I think I've kind of maybe inspired my little niece, and she wants to travel as well. And she's like, when I grow up, I want to travel the world like Crunch does. And like I don't want to get married because men are well, that's my personal thing that that she's kind of absorbed. But like we don't realize it, but our actions are so have such a large and lasting impact on the young humans in our lives. So we have to be really conscious about like what we're doing and whether we're actively like setting them up to have the kind of lives that we want them to have, right? Like being able to travel freely or pursue a career of their choice or do whatever or stay at home and be a mom if that's really what they want to do, right? Like, but having that choice and knowing that it's a conscious choice that they're making is something that they only get from seeing adults like us making those choices for ourselves now, right? Like it's not something that once they're 25 years old, then you tell them like, oh, you're free to do whatever you want. But the messaging that they've received for the first 25 years of their lives is that women put their lives on hold until their kids are old enough, and I don't know if that's something that you convey to your kids, then like that's a decision that you have to make. And I'm not saying that like either way is right or wrong, but I think it has to be a conscious decision rather than like, oh, this is what society's trained us to believe about ourselves or how we should live our lives. And therefore I'm just gonna follow the script because I don't know
Yeah.
about you, but like the script's not working for me and it hasn't been working for a lot of people.
Oh, I agree. I've blown up and like shredded the script so many times. And then like I've got to like the travel part of the script. And I'm like, oh, how do I get through this one? And I would love to take them around the world with me. Like that is the dream. And I said to my daughter the other day, I said, I'd love to travel, but I'd take an au pair with me because I don't have a partner. I don't have, a nanny or anything, but I would take someone with me to help me, you know, with the children. And so I can get some solo time in there as well, because it's so important to have that solo time. And when I traveled overseas earlier in the year to London and France, I was with my mum, and unfortunately she ended up in hospital at one stage. And I was all alone in this big city and thinking to myself, I'm like, oh, okay, so on one hand, I did actually want to travel alone initially. And second of all, like, oh my gosh, I'm traveling alone. This is really daunting and so inspiring at the same time. And I think like that was my first time like properly traveling alone. And I actually really loved the parts of it, other than the fact that I was going through this absolute nightmare with my mum being in hospital. There was a part of me that's like, oh my God, I don't know anyone here. No one knows me. I don't speak the language. I'm communicating to tell the waiter that I am vegan through Google Translate and please don't put cheese on something. Whilst like soaking in a different atmosphere and just being in it, like it shook me awake in the most beautiful ways. And I'm such an advocate for travel. And, you're right. I do want to impart this wisdom on my children. And I also think like they might need to be a little bit older as I do that as well, because, the time away from them, is something that I think we both, the three of us struggled with when I was away.
That's absolutely valid. Firstly, like, let me say, I'm so sorry that your mom was hospitalized. I hope she's okay now. Um,
Yes, she's okay.
but going to your point about having young kids and not wanting to miss out on that time with them, because that is important. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have that. So, and I know that 3 weeks is a long time, but maybe you could even consider like, what are some ways that you can show them about how you prioritize travel in your life by even taking like a short weekend trip to, I don't know, a different city in Australia, or like you said, to New Zealand. Like, that's not a super long flight, or just getting away for a weekend. I think like the essence of it is that we want to show our kids that we prioritize ourselves, right? Like time for ourselves, like whatever that looks like for us. For me, it's travel. For you, it might be your weekly pottery lessons that you go for and you never miss, or like your morning self-care routine that you always do regardless of whether the kids are with you or not, right? And you want to not just impart these to them like on a one-off thing, like, oh, I'm going on a big vacation, like a big trip for 3 weeks and you won't see me and blah blah, but also in our day-to-day actions, like how are you showing up for yourself every single day, right? Because those are the actions that they are going to remember when they're older. It's not probably that like mom abandoned us for 3 weeks, but it's going to be like, oh, mom always did her meditation in the morning, like she took care of herself. Like they may not understand that as taking care of yourself right now because they're kids and they're like, what is she doing? Like, she's just sitting there with her eyes closed. I don't know what she's doing. Maybe she's just like, whatever, right? But like once they're older, they're gonna understand and respect you for that. They're like, oh, mom always took time for herself, because that's important for all of us to take time for ourselves and not always be sacrificing ourselves at the altar of productivity, you know. So I think
Yeah.
that's really critical. And I'm glad that, as weird as that sound, I'm kind of glad that your mom ended up in the hospital. Like, I hope it was nothing. And, but it kind of pushed you into that situation of needing to navigate travel on your own. And I think, like you said, right, like it's scary, it's daunting, you don't speak the language, and you're dealing with like this whole crisis on the side. But I don't know about you, but when I'm in a situation like that and I come out on the other side, knowing that things worked out, like regardless that they might not have been the best situation, but like you figured that out and you got that shit done. And you come out of the
Yeah.
other side knowing like you got this, like whatever life throws at you, like whether it's in a travel situation or in your real life, like you got this. You can do hard things. You've navigated France, you've navigated the healthcare system of France for somebody else, and dealt with being a vegan in a foreign country, in a foreign language, and all of the things. Like what can't you do? Right? Like, doesn't that just give you
Honestly,
that sense
yes.
of empowerment and confidence?
It was like I walked out of there, like I got on the plane home, I was like, fuck. Like what? Like I was so exhausted, but I was so empowered because yes, I had to navigate so much. Don't even get me started on the healthcare system in France. Like that's a separate podcast episode in itself. But even just navigating the subway, like the trains and the stations, like the fact that I knew my way around parts of Paris when I needed to, and what I could, like how to ask for help, and really just like I learned so much about myself on that trip. And funnily enough, what you said about even just taking myself away for weekends, I do that because I have my kids every second weekend. And I take myself away quite a fair bit. I love going away. And it's funny because I'm actually booked to go to Adelaide in a few weeks' time. And I was telling my daughter this in the car last night. I said, oh, so I'm off to Adelaide in a few weeks. And then I was actually scheduled to be on Adelaide, a radio station. I did an interview last night on past life regression. And I mentioned to my daughter, I've got to be on the radio this afternoon in Adelaide. And in her beautiful little 9-year-old mind, she turns to me and she goes, are you moving to Adelaide? Like there was just so much because I've already booked this trip. I said I was going to be on a radio show. I didn't think she realized that you can just dial in. She just looked at me in a panic as if, are you moving away to Adelaide? So It's, it's so interesting how they actually comprehend it. And I've had to remind them, when I have gone, because I fly interstate a fair bit. I go to, Sydney, Melbourne. I've been to Adelaide a few times. It's so important to let them know that I'm coming back, because I think there is that sort of a bit of a worry, from when I went over, because when I was in Paris, and that's when my mum had a fall and broke her hip, there was a bit of uncertainty around mum being able to fly home. And so when I told the children and broke them the news that, hey, look, this is what's happened to their nana, and because it was my son's birthday 2 days after we got home. So I wasn't actually sure whether I would make it home in time for his birthday. And he had some really big feelings around that. And
Mhm.
so that's kind of, activated, I guess, sort of this maybe an abandonment wound in there. So being able to remind them, like, I'm coming home, I will be there, like it's all going to be okay. And they're excited to travel with me as they get older. My son said to me a few weeks ago, it was school holidays and we're at the beach, and he said, oh, can we please fly up to the Great Barrier Reef and go snorkeling? I said, yeah, I'd love to take you that, but you've actually got to get in the ocean at the beach first before you can, eventually go snorkeling. He didn't even want to get past the whitewash of the waves. And I'm like, buddy, if you want to go to the Great Barrier Reef, we could do that, but you got to get a bit more confident in the water. So they're definitely getting there.
Yeah, yeah. I would love to travel with, I mean, like, I am planning to take my nieces out on trips with me as well. And, I'm excited for them to get a bit older. Like, they're exactly the same age as your kids. They're 7 and 9. So I'm hoping, like, when I've been telling them, like, once you can carry your own backpack with like 2 weeks worth of stuff in it, and you can, like, not complain about doing it, like, we can go. So they've got that
Yeah.
milestone to work towards.
I like, you know what? I really like having that milestone, because I think one of the biggest things that especially my son would struggle with is the food. He eats a pretty basic diet. Like, he eats pretty basic food. And if we go somewhere where there isn't just like, bread and peanut butter as a last resort, he might sort of struggle with that a bit. And I'm excited to see, as they get a bit older, and then obviously they can have that memory and that excitement, and, give them a camera so they can take things from their perspective. I'm very excited to travel with them as they get a little bit older.
Yeah, that's gonna be super fun. I mean, the worst case scenario, you just
Yeah.
take a box of peanut butter in your backpack or in your suitcase or whatever, just have it like secretly in the worst case scenario that like he doesn't eat anything. So he's gonna be prepared.
Yes, I love that idea. Now, Crunch, when you work with, you mentioned women that you work with a lot. What are you seeing in the women that are coming through and working with you? Like, are they going through divorce? Are they going through empty nesting? What's sort of the common theme that you're seeing women come to you with, who are just like, I guess, at a loss in their life and ready for something different? You're like, hey, let's do some travel. What are you seeing the most of?
Yeah, it varies. Like, the people go through all kinds of life changes, right? Like, in our lifetimes we go through so many different careers, we change jobs easily, and like people are getting laid off right, left, right, and center these days. Like, there isn't really that kind of like iron rice bowl that people in the previous generations used to have, like a job that they did for 40 years and didn't ever have to worry about that. And things are changing so quickly as well, in terms of what's necessary, what's needed, right? Like, in terms of the services that we're offering. I mean, 10 years ago, digital marketing was not a thing. Now it's a very, very big thing, like a multi-billion-dollar industry, right? So we have jobs that we didn't even imagine that we could have had 10 years ago. So, I think like career change is usually like a common element that people are dealing with. And, between jobs is a time when people find that, okay, I've worked at this job for 5 years. Like, I've made like a good sum of money, and now I want to do something different, but I want to like kind of like reset my mind, reset everything about how I look at the world. Because, being in a certain industry for 5 or 10 or 15 years kind of like gives you tunnel vision a little bit, right? Like, you get this idea about this is how the world works and this is how things are. And that's not really true, right? Like, all it takes is one step outside of that tunnel, and you're just like, oh my gosh, there's a whole world out here. Right? So when people are in between jobs is like the perfect time for them to kind of explore that to go on that trip that they've always wanted to take. And, it's always been like, oh no, but like I can't take that much time off work, or like I have these commitments, blah, blah, blah. And then once you take away one of the biggest commitments that people have, that's when they're just kind of like, you know what? I am going to take that trip to Egypt and see the pyramids that I've always dreamed of doing. And nobody's going to stop me because my boss is not going to be like emailing me every 15 minutes to ask me about something. Right. So, that's a common kind of moment for people to explore travel. The other one is when there's like a really, really big life change. Like people, like women in our 30s, usually this is the time when, I don't know, divorce is on the rise, or like this is when, the people who got married really young are realizing that, like, okay, maybe this is not the person that I want to spend the rest of my life with. And like they're going through separations, divorce, that kind of stuff. And, when you take that away, especially if you got married young, that can be like a real shakeup in your system, right? Like, oh, I've associated, I mean, like my entire young adulthood has been spent with this person, and now no, they're no longer part of my defining identity. Like, who am I? Right. And that's another big motivator for people to embark on kind of like the eat, pray, love journeys, right? That I think her name was Elizabeth Gilbert, like popularized, right? So that's the other one that people are kind of exploring. And also people who are new empty nesters, when their kids, like you said, right, like in another 10 years, when your kids are old enough, then you will think about traveling, right? Like, so for a lot of us who have kids, we just use our kids as kind of like an excuse for hiding our fears, right? Like, we're actually terrified to travel alone, or like we want to have companionship while we're traveling. We don't want to do this alone, whatever, right? And we've just been saying like the kids, the kids, the kids this whole time, and now they're gone, and you're just like, well, I guess I don't have an excuse anymore. And a friend of mine was recently telling me about her mom, who took a trip with one of her girlfriends, and she went on this single ladies in their middle age kind of travel group tour kind of thing. But everybody on that tour was like a middle-aged single lady. I mean, she was still married, but she went without her husband. And she said that it was one of the most liberating, freeing experiences of her life, because her whole life she'd been told she needed to wait for a man to like accompany her. Like, she needed to go with her husband. Her husband's still working. She's retired. And she's like, I don't have to wait for him. And she came back and she realized that, like, she doesn't need to wait for him to take a trip or do anything else. So she let her ride a bicycle at the age of 60. I mean, like, that just fills my heart with joy, to know that this elderly lady, or like kind of elderly lady, who's learning how to ride a bicycle for the first time. And she's just learning, she started swimming lessons. So, I mean, that trip was kind of like the click moment for her when she realized that we don't have to be waiting around for people to tell us that we can or cannot do things. We can't just go out and do them.
That's
So,
so true, isn't
yeah.
it? Now, I just want to make an apology to my mum who'll be listening to this because she's in her late 60s. You're not elderly, mum. It's okay. And also, make this your inspiration to learn how to ride a bike, because my mum can't ride a bike. So hopefully this will inspire her to do so. Crunch, I want to hear your most inspired experience for yourself that you've had through travel. What's a story or an adventure that you've been on that you felt most inspired by?
Oh, there've been so many. Like, do you want good inspirational or bad inspirational?
Surprise me. Whatever comes to mind first, whatever is at the tip of your tongue and the top of your heart, what would that be?
Okay, I think so. In 2016, 2015, 2016, I was in the Dominican Republic. Um and my passport got stolen along with like the rest of my belongings. And the Dominican Republic is an island. I mean, like, it's a country that shares like one half of an island in the Caribbean, right? So, and it's a very small country. My country is very small. So, what happened was that there's no consulate or embassy in the Dominican Republic for Singapore. So, I was in this really weird situation of not having any legal documents. And faced with the possibility of not being able to leave the country because I couldn't prove how I gotten there, you know? So like it was a very weird kind of legal situation, and it was the most stressful 10 days of my life because like I had no access to funds. I couldn't get like people to like my cards were also stolen. So I had no access to like money. I couldn't get anybody to Western Union me anybody because I didn't have a passport to receive the money, right? Like, you know, they send it to you and you need to have ID to pick it up at the Western Union. And like, they were like, if you don't have a passport, we can't release the money to you. I was like, oh my God. Okay. And like, no way to get a new passport either. And it was very terrifying and stressful because like I reported to the police and they launched like a full scale investigation, and they were like, this is a syndicate of robbers and they prey on tourists and they're very dangerous. They've killed people before this. So you need to be watching out for yourself. Don't walk around by yourself. And I was completely alone in this country. Didn't know anybody. Had to rely on the kindness of strangers who took me in, who like let me stay in their house, and you know, who looked out for me and like watched out for me. And like it was terrifying and it was amazing at the same time because like, you know, at the time when I had no money to pay for a hotel, like I stayed in the home of a lady who worked as a dishwasher in a restaurant, right? She doesn't make a lot of money, but she found it in the kindness and goodness of her heart to take in me, like, and let me stay in her house, you know? So like the generosity of people, and like I went on national TV in the Dominican Republic to make like a public appeal for my passport, you know, because I had no way of getting off the island. They were talking about like voluntary deportation, or you have to marry a Dominican and wait 5 years to get citizenship so that you can get new papers. And I was just like, no, this sounds horrible. Right. So it's a very high stress situation. And the Dominican Republic's not like a well to do country, and people mostly live kind of on or below the poverty line. Like they're not well to do yet. You know, after like my interview on national TV, like people would come up to me in the street and be like, have you found your passport? Do you have money? Here's $2 to buy yourself some food. And I would just like start crying because like their generosity just moved me. So I don't like that was one of the most difficult times of my life. I was also having like a personal crisis at that time. So it was like all of the things that made a perfect storm. And it taught me that people are ultimately, most people are good people. You know, like even though there are people out there who will take advantage of you and like steal your stuff, most people are just trying to make a living, trying to make ends meet, doing the best that they can with what they have and what they know, right? So like I don't fault the people who stole my stuff. I mean, they're trying to survive also, right? So I mean, it is what they felt that they had to do in order to, you know, make a living. So and you know, the kindness and generosity of complete strangers who were, you know, just looking out for me on our shared humanity and nothing more than that. They owed me nothing, really. They had no obligation to come up to me and give me $2. But they did, and that was incredible to see. And I think that also showed me that like I can deal with all kinds of wild situations that most people can't even imagine, you know, and I survived it. Like I eventually got my passport back, like through some,
Oh, you got it back.
I got it back.
Oh,
Like they arrested.
I was so excited to hear. I'm like, what happened to the passport? How did you get out of
Right. I was not deported. I did not marry a Dominican.
there?
But they arrested like a bunch of people, and like eventually because they couldn't use the passport anyways for like, you know, not smuggling. What's the word that I'm looking for? For trafficking people or whatever,
Trafficking.
right?
Yep.
Yeah. So like my passport, like it was, I think that I was the only Singaporean in the entire country at that time, maybe. So like once my passport passed the border, it would have like lifted like a lot of red flags and they would have been arrested. So they're like, you know what, like this passport's useless. Like let's just return it to this lady so she will just go away.
Yeah.
Right. So
Let
I
her
got
off
my
the
passport back.
TV. Oh, what an incredible story. And you know what? My experience overseas was not as hectic as that. My mom actually had stuff stolen from the hospital in France when she went into theater. She had her iPad and her iPhone stolen, which cut her off from the world. It cut her off from being able to use Google Translate because no one spoke English.
Mhm.
So I understand exactly what that is. And it's interesting because when you travel and you're thrown into such a traumatic experience and such adversity, you have to be creative. You have to find faith in something, whether it's in God or the universe or yourself or your angels, your guardians, or just, the criminals to hand back your passport that they've stolen. I find that it allows you, and it's an invitation to dig deep into what you've got. Like, I found myself in a church praying, and I'm not a person that steps into a church. I assumed that I would have like started burning in a church. So I met this new version of myself that I didn't even know existed. And I inspired myself through that, and I got out the other end of it. And I mean, I had a bit of a fried nervous system and I was pretty exhausted for a little while when I got back because I was dealing with so much. But it woke me up. It empowered me. It showed me my strength. Like, it showed me the love that I had for myself and the faith that I ended up not only finding, but like further developing. And these earth angels that I met along the way, like there was so many people along the way that, at one point when I had to call the ambulance for my mum, I was trying to communicate in English to a French person trying to explain what happened. And there was this language barrier, and then the phone kept getting cut off, and then I was put through to a translator and got cut off again. And so I ran out onto the street, and it just so happened that this man was walking past who spoke both French and English, and he was able to be the translator on the phone while I'm trying to tell him what's going on, and he's translating it to call an ambulance. Like, just the angels that were dotted everywhere on my path just became so heartwarming, and I felt so held, even though at times I felt very alone. But then I had people back in Australia, so family and friends, like holding space and checking in with me. My sister was dealing with everything from Australia whilst it was nighttime over in France, so I could sleep. And then she was dealing with our insurance company in Australia, so it was backwards and forwards. And we just made it work. We just had to because we had no choice. And even though, yes, it was exhausting, I am so wildly grateful for the experience.
Mhm. That's absolutely right. And like you said, right, the angels, like I always feel that like when you travel or when I travel, my faith in humanity is restored because I
Yeah.
think if you hang out on social media or like watch the news too much, like you stop believing that everybody out there is out to kill you. People are evil. People want nothing more than to like look out for themselves and their own. And yes, there are people like that, but they're in the very, very small minority of people. Like for the most part, the regular humans who are walking around on this planet doing the best they can to survive within these systems that we live within, like, but all just trying to do what we got to do to survive and to also, I think we don't lose our humanity once we're put into tough situations. Like some of the most kind, generous, open, welcoming people that I've met are people who don't have very much at all,
Yeah.
and that's not to justify the fact that like they shouldn't have anything, but it is despite their circumstances, they've maintained this grasp on what it means to be human and how it looks to show up in the world as you would want to be received by others, right? So I always like when I come back up from a trip, it's always like, people are great. I love people. They're so wonderful.
Yes. Yes. I'm the same. It's like, oh, this just inspires me to travel more. And nothing about traveling is always smooth sailing. It's missing the connecting flights. It's, booking a really shitty Airbnb. It's, in my mum's case, falling over and breaking your hip. It's these things that, actually make you stronger. And, I mean, if you come back with an awesome story to tell, I mean, why wouldn't you want to go through it?
Yeah, I mean that's one of my like sayings about travel or life in general, right? Like there are no bad experiences, they're just good experiences and good stories.
Exactly, exactly. Crunch, what's some wisdom that you can impart on the listeners if they're thinking, oh my gosh, yes, it's about time I traveled, or I want to get out there? Like, what's a piece of wisdom that you would like to impart today?
I would say that if your heart is calling out for you to do something, then maybe you should listen to it. Right? And it can be scary, it can be it can feel overwhelming, it can, I don't know, maybe you don't know where to start, or like you've never done something like this before and everybody around you is just looking at you weird, like you want to go to Egypt by yourself? Why? Right? And that's where you need to get the support that you need so that you can make this dream a reality, right? Like don't let this become a regret, because we don't have like our tomorrows are not promised, they're not guaranteed. There's no assurance that we're going to be here in 1 year or in 5 years or in 10 years. And that's something that I've recently been encountering a lot of. Like recently a friend of mine, like her brother passed away, he was 38 years old. A person that I met, like a friend acquaintance that I met in a hostel while I was traveling, he passed away, and he was, I think, like 35 also. Like people are like, there is no assurance that we're going to be around tomorrow, so why not, like if your heart is telling you like, I'm ready to go on a trip, like I want to make this a reality for myself, go out and do it, and don't let it become a regret. Get the support that you need. Like, we're here to help you, we're here to guide you through the process. There are people who've done it before you. You don't have to do it alone if you don't want to, like, and just do it. I don't know, like,
I love it.
I don't know, like, that's really like the honest advice that I would give anybody.
I love it. And then enter stage left Crunch, who can help you and support you with this. Crunch, are you an agent? Do you book trips for people, or do you just support them working out where they want to go? Like, how does the work that you do actually work?
Okay, that's a good question. I don't help people book anything. Like I don't do any itineraries or anything, because I believe that if you're going on a transformational journey, the journey is yours, right? Like it's unique for every single individual. And like what might be transformational for me might have nothing to do with you. Or like you're just kind of like, why would anybody want to go to Egypt and see the pyramids? That's so weird, right? Like I just keep talking about it like that's, I think, the next thing that I need to do.
I'm
But
coming
for
too.
some,
I'm coming too. That's the next thing on my list. Well, I'll see you there.
right? But not everybody would resonate with this trip, right? Like somebody might want to go to Machu Picchu, somebody might want to go, I don't know, live in a monastery in Nepal, whatever, right? Like the trip that you need to take, that's in you. I can guide you through the process, but I can't like make the trip happen for you. Like that's something you got to do, because I think even in the process of planning and executing your own trip, like gives you that sense of like, I know what I'm doing. Like I can take care of this. I can navigate this on my own, and I don't need anybody to do any of that. Of course, like if you want to outsource it, like there are travel agents and people like that, but my job is to kind of hold space for you to first figure out like, what do you want to get out of the trip? Like what is your intention for this trip? Like what are you navigating? Do you want to step out of your comfort zone? Do you want to try new things? Do you want to just completely shift your perspective on life? Do you just want to do something that has been a bucket list item since you were 3, and now's the time that you want to make it happen? Right? Like, what is the intention for your trip? And then along the way, like, I've been through all kinds of wild things in my travels. So, like, probably whatever you're going to get yourself into, I can probably guide you through it, you know? So I'll be there right along you, like virtually or physically, if you would like that, to guide you through the process and like to be your companion, to be your friend, right? Like your person who you text at like 3 in the morning, like, I'm lost in the streets of Vietnam or whatever. And I will guide you through like what you need to do so that you can get back to safety or whatever. Right. So And once you finish your trip, coming back and like reintegrating all of the things that you learned, that you're getting out of the trip, and applying that to your life, right? To bring a little bit of that travel magic into your real life. I think that we often become different versions of ourselves when we travel. Like we're more open, we're more free, we're more welcoming, we're not so judgmental. And somehow when we come back, like all of that's forgotten in 2 days or less. Right? So my
Mm.
job is to help remind you of who you were while you were traveling, because most of us like the versions that we are while we're traveling, not so much maybe the people that we are back home. And so why not, make that a thing, where you are your travel self while you're in your real life, why can't that be true for you? You just gotta be a little bit more intentional and conscious of it when you're planning your life. So that's kind of like what I do, how I support people. And of course, if you need like tips and tricks or like advice on like planning logistics, the practical aspects of things, like I also have experience in that, so I can guide you through that.
And what to do when you have your passport stolen in the Dominican. Absolutely. What an incredible offering and magic that you bring to the world. Like, I didn't even know until you and I connected that this was a thing. I could have really used you a few months ago, Crunch. Like, I really needed someone in my corner that just got it. So, I mean, look, if we ever, mastered time travel, I'm going back in time to relive that trip, but having you in my corner as well.
Yeah, we can do
Yeah. I will link to everything in the show notes connected with you. So, your Instagram handle, your website, so people can reach out and support you. However, Crunch, I have one more question for you. And to you, what is the meaning of life?
what is the meaning of life? I don't know. I feel like the meaning of life is what you make of it, right? And that's just it. Like everybody has a different path that they're meant to take, but a lot of times we're just too scared to take the path that's meant for us. Like it's right there. All you have to do is walk on it and not, get stuck in the trajectories that society has planned out for us, right? Like we often fall into this trap of like, oh, I gotta go to college, I gotta get married, I gotta have kids and work for 45 years and then retire and then enjoy my life. And like that's one path. That isn't the only path, and it might not be your path, right? So I would say, the meaning of life is figuring out what you want to do with your life, because we only have one wild and precious life. So why not do everything that you've always wanted to do?
Yes, I love it so much. Crunch, thank you so much for being on the Enlightened podcast and sharing all of your wisdom. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here.
Thank you so much for having me on and for allowing me to share my perspectives. And I hope it was helpful to somebody who's out there listening to this.
You're amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I hope you love the Enlightened podcast, and the biggest compliment you can give me is subscribing to this podcast, sharing it, and leaving a rating and review. Feel free to follow me on Instagram. My handle is @JenHamiltonOfficial, and the podcast handle is Enlightened_podcast. You can also find the video version on YouTube on my channel. Just search Enlightened and don't forget to hit subscribe. Have a beautiful day and enjoy living the enlightened journey of life.